Well, we said we had a big episode coming for you guys on Monday. Our very first player is joining us today. Stay tuned, too.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasko, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Listening anywhere else, come over to the YouTube, drop a subscription. Discord link is down in the description if you guys want to join there as well. Talk Blue Jays with us any time of day. But let's get right into it. Let's welcome in our first guest, player, Irv Carter. Irv, how's it going?
What's up, guys? I really appreciate you guys taking the time and doing this great talk show, man. So I'm excited for it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking time out of your day coming on. Obviously, you're busy with your routines, getting back into the swing of things. So we'll just start it out kind of fresh, kind of easy. Just what got you into baseball? What started you what made you fall in love with the game?
Yeah, man. I was born in New Jersey, so I moved to Jupiter, Florida at the age of 6 years old. And I was, probably like every other kid, I was in the backyard playing wiffle ball with my family and my cousins and my godfather. And we were just hitting wiffle balls. And my godfather was like, man, I mean, this kid has really good hand-eye coordination. And he told my dad, and he was like, hey, man, like, you should really, like, get him into baseball. And my dad was like, baseball, really? Because my dad was a football, basketball guy. So we started up with T-ball and Little League and travel ball and on from there. But, I mean, everything started in that backyard, man.
That's that's pretty much how we got started into it too.
It just not up to the level, obviously.
Yeah, not quite the same thing. But I guess when you were drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays, obviously in 2021, I guess what was that whole experience like? Because for the rest of us, the closest we'll ever get is playing MLB The Show or something like that, and you get your draft there. So how was that whole experience?
It was surreal. I mean, I had a pretty good idea. I was going day two. Day one was only the first round, and day two was rounds 2 through 10. So I had a pretty idea I was going to go early that day, and I went later than I expected. And it was kind of crazy. I mean, going through it, whenever you're in the draft, you always think you're going to go somewhere, and then guys are going and names are getting called. You're like, wait, who's so-and-so? Who's that? I've never heard of this guy. It was a crazy experience, man. And thankfully, the Jays got me in the 5th round. I had a very, very strong commitment to the University of Miami. I was, very, very close on going there, but I'm glad, we got a deal done, and I was made a Blue Jay that day. It was, a dream come true.
Yeah, how was that experience after you got that call? Were you just sent straight to the facilities? Did you have some time to kind of pack your things, talk to the family, say your goodbyes? Like, how was that transition going from your lifestyle just over to the Blue Jays facilities?
It's funny. I was talking about this with my boy the other day. It was like, it almost felt like a new life started for me. As soon as I got drafted, it was like, it feels like you're at the very, very tippity top when you get drafted. And then it's like reality sets in. It's like, all right, like now we got to start all the way from the bottom and get back to the top, So I probably had maybe 3 days to get my stuff together. 3 days. I mean, packed everything that I could, and then drove down to Tampa, Florida, and started down here. So it was a very, very trash transition, but the way the Jays transitioned us into the org and just meeting everyone and getting familiar with your routines and stuff like that, they did an incredible job when I was 18 during that time.
So I want to ask you about camp and how everything's going there, but I guess before we really get into all that, what is the day-to-day for you looking like off season, during the season, preparing for each season to come? Like, again, we don't talk to too many players, and I don't think the listeners really get to hear that side of things. So
no, for sure. The off season for me is a big deal. I'm big on taking time off on my arm, especially after last year. I had the most innings I've ever had in my career last year, so I wanted to make sure my arm was in a good spot coming into this year. So I took about a month and a half off of my arm on completely no throwing, and then started back up with training. But I mean, a day in the life, I would say waking up around 6:30, 7 o'clock, getting on the field around 9 o'clock. Go from 9 to 10:30 on the field. Leave the field around 10:30, head to my gym session at 11, go from my gym from 11 to 1:30, leave there, get a little lunch by 2, and then go see my chiropractor / my doctor who, trains me on, my hips, my ankles, getting treatment and stuff of that nature. So I'll probably do that from like 2:30 to 4 o'clock, head back to the crib, recover, eat, watch games and stuff, and then do the same thing like the next day. So it was a lot of hard work. I was, in between St. Louis, Missouri and my home in West Palm Beach. I was, training with some of the people up there at First Form in St. Louis, Missouri, and my trainer Nathan and Chris Little up there. And then the second half of my off season, I brought it back home to train with my pitching coach Julio LaPala and get back with those guys at TBT. So it was a great off season. We got a lot of great work done, and I'm really glad I came into camp, feeling good, arms moving good. So, I really just can't complain. It's been a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it sounds like it's obviously a ton of grinding that goes into it. Lots of you're basically throughout the day, like night and day. You're going pretty hard. So obviously you have that off season. You have that month and a half to kind of relax, take some stress off that arm. What do you kind of do with your time there? Like, what are your hobbies? Are you into other sports? Like, what are you doing with your time when you do have that month and a half off?
I was traveling, man. I was enjoying myself, man. I was traveling for my birthday. So October 8th is my birthday. So I went on a nice cruise. I went with my family to DR. So stuff like that, man. So, just big on traveling. I'm huge on fashion. So I like, getting new clothes and new shoes and new hats and accessories and stuff of that nature. But I'm not going to lie, man, like those first 2-3 weeks, you're like in paradise. You're like, man, I get to do nothing, just chill. I get to binge watch TV shows, all this. But it's like fourth week sits in and you're like, man, I want to get back to balling. Like, I want to get back in the gym. So, that stuff kind of starts itch you around that time. But I feel like I took the perfect amount of time off of my body, and I can already tell with me in the camp, my body feels good, my weight's in a good place. So, I'm really glad I took that time off because it is a very long year as I experienced last year.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think this, we started the podcast about a year ago, and as people that do this every day, we're like, holy, this is a long season, and we couldn't imagine from your guys' perspective, it is a ton of work that you guys put in, and to see, I guess, the results. I think looking at some of your stuff, your stats and everything like that, it seemed like you had a really good season last year. Are you thinking that you're going to go into this year playing even better?
No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. I feel last year was kind of like this, like where we set the bar from now on. You know what I'm saying? I feel like my first 2 years in the org, I had my struggles and I was dealing with injuries and stuff of that nature. But once you kind of find yourself and find your routine and find what makes you tick and makes you tick the right way, you just kind of just ride with that. So I was glad to have a really great year last year. I did really, really well in low A, and I transitioned that into getting promoted to Vancouver and kind of put up the same numbers there. So I was really, really glad with my work in just a whole of last year. And I was glad I didn't miss, an outing. I was healthy for all my outings on the field, So now it's just taking that into the off season and just making sure that things I was doing right this year were not kind of falling off the wagon and kind of changing stuff. It's kind of, doing the things I was good at last year and building off that.
You talked about that switch you made from Dunedin to pitching in Vancouver. What was that transition like? Obviously, in Vancouver, you're going to get a lot bigger crowds. The atmosphere is probably a little bit different there. What was the main difference that you noticed between Dunedin and that Vancouver team?
Just the attention to detail. They're very attentive to the base running over there. More guys have a plan. I'm a big cutter guy right now, so I like throwing my sinker and my cutter combo. That's kind of like my bread and butter for me, and everything else just kind of plays off that. So I feel in low A, I was kind of bullying guys on my cutter, and they kind of were making adjustments. And then when I got to Vancouver, guys were just really just sitting on that. So I was seeing that and then throwing more sinkers and stuff like that. And, guys on base, we would face teams that would have guys that had 50 to 60 stolen bases. And it's like, this is crazy, So, it was always a big emphasis in the org on holding guys and being fast to the plate. But when you get to high A, you really see it in real life, like guys stealing from first to second and next pitch, second to third. You're like, wow, a single just became a triple in 2 pitches, So when you really, really take the small details of the game and really implement that in your daily work, like in play catch, it really makes a difference. Like I was even with my friend JJ Sanchez. We were in low A together, and they were, harping on us, hey guys, we got to be fast to the place. And then when we got to Vancouver, every time we finished our play catch session, it was like we got at least 10 pitches on being fast to the plate, because it's the little things at that level that makes the biggest difference.
So I know you sort of talked about guys making adjustments and things, and I guess when you go, from an outing or whatever, are you a big analytic guy, or are you sort of taking how you felt on the mound that day, more so than I guess if you looking back at film or analytics?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing I wanted to know was, what helped me was having the mentality of getting a guy out in less than 4 pitches. I think that's, that helps a lot of things. I feel that helps your pitch count. That helps your arm feeling better the next day. It helps your team, with your infield not being so stagnant. So my biggest thing was, how can I get guys out in less than 4 pitches? So if I had an 0-2 count, how can we make that 0-2, 1-2, and then that being it? So, my thing was, if I pitched the next day, we would come in and we would have a meeting on how we did, how we execute our pitches, if we were getting ahead in the zone, if we were getting 2 strikes fast, if we had any 3-ball counts, so what that looked like in a whole, So, I think the pitching staff and the pitching coaches really do a great job to simplify things, to make our job as easy as possible. But they just have their main things on are we getting ahead? Are we staying ahead? When we have 2 strikes, are we finishing guys, not getting into 2, 3-ball counts? So, they have a big emphasis on just making pitching very simple, which helps a lot.
And that's going to be one of the biggest things that we see from compared to like single A, whether it's double A, triple A, all the way up to the major leagues, that attention to detail. You guys are obviously such good baseball players at the level you're at right now, but that one little thing that could go wrong can completely change the complexion of an at-bat. Yep. But as we do progress through this offseason, we obviously want to see like how you kind of take on these game situations, what you were planning on working on throughout this rest of this spring training era that we do have here as we get into the season. But we do want to take a short break, so we're going to take a quick cut and jump into all that stuff coming up.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You guys know I talk about FanDuel all the time. It's my place to go to place my bets. And as sort of the NBA season is continuing underway, make sure you guys get in on the FanDuel action. March Madness is coming up, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on anything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I talked about it. I bet March Madness every single year, but big on the NFL, big on MLB, and everything's coming back up soon. NHL playoffs, so if you guys want to get in there as well. So visit FanDuel.com to get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. So, Carter, I'll throw things back to you there just as you were finishing off your thought before the break.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll jump back into it. So obviously you said last year you're coming off of some injuries, still being earlier on in the season. Are you 100% wrapped up right now? Are you still trying to get to some specific velos that you're looking for? Like, where are you kind of at with where you're at in regards to right now in terms of when the regular season's coming up? Like, are you fully ready? If like say the regular season started tomorrow, would you be fully ready to go and like you're ready with your pitches and your speeds and everything?
Yeah, man, I'm ready to go. I've been ready.
Love to hear it.
Before I came here, the last guy I faced him live was actually Juan Soto, man. So once I faced him, I'm like, man, I'm ready to go. You know what I'm saying? So I got here, and I think a big thing last year, it wasn't the pitchability, it was more like just holding a certain velo, and I feel like after my injuries in 22, my velo kind of dropped. So to be back in camp and sitting 93, 94, my pens has been amazing for me and just a big progression jump for me from the last 2 years. You know what I'm saying? So I threw my first live here 2 days ago. It went great. And then I'm going to have a bullpen tomorrow in our pitching lab in Dunedin. So that should be fun. And then my first game should be on Thursday.
Unreal. I guess sort of where I want to go, just playing off the whole Juan Soto of it all. I guess you see a ton of different guys, right? You see your best of the best. You see guys that are making in their first years. What, I guess, when you're facing a batter that has some experience, what can you tell the difference of a guy that's guys that's been in the league a while or a guy's first year? Can you like really pick up on certain things?
For sure. Really, just their eyes, man. I don't think anyone in the world has a better eye than Soto. So facing him was just eye-opening, just because a ball's a ball and a strike's a strike. So I think with younger hitters, I feel like you could kind of manipulate guys easier. And that's kind of the same thing I was saying in low A. Like you could kind of have your one pitch and kind of get by guys, but like when you get to the more mature hitters that has been in the league for multiple years and has seen the nastiest of cutters or the nastiest of changeups, that's when you really get those takes. And I feel that's when you're really pitching at that level, because now it's like me versus you, and it's me versus your best of versus you versus your best of. So I think it's a great match for sure.
Yeah, you can't really ease into things when you're, going against Juan Soto. You kind of just
No.
have to go right in and go all for it. But
Yeah.
you were talking about how you've been throwing some cutters, things like that. Is this offseason, was there anything like you've been mainly focusing on without giving too much away for the people? But was there did you have a main focus of this offseason, or was it just kind of just shoring up everything and getting fully ready for this upcoming season?
I wouldn't say there was a main focus. I think there was a focus on to get my slider a little bigger because I don't want my slider bending with my cutter. I mean, I know who I am as a pitcher now. I know I'm a sinker cutter guy, and I know for me to be good, those things have to be on. But also the other stuff like my changeup and my slider, those have to be on as well. So I think trying to find my slider in the offseason was a big thing. I think finding my changeup as well. I mean, I think throwing a really, really good changeup is a big part of the game. I still think it's the best pitch in baseball. So kind of getting my changeup a little more simplified and me just throwing that pitch more consistently and obviously just getting stronger on the field, in the weight room, and I feel that's corresponded really, really well so far in the camp.
I got a couple more questions for you, but I love to figure out the little day-to-day things of
Yeah.
professional baseball players. I guess who are like the guys you can go to within your team, within the organization to ask questions or go over things with, or who are the guys that you just want to, have some fun with? Like who are those guys for you within the team?
It's a good question, man. With the team, so are you talking about like the Vancouver Canadian team or the whole organization?
Either one. Yeah, I guess both. I guess on the more day-to-day stuff for the team that, the Vancouver
Yeah.
team, but then overall, like, is there guys that you can reach out to, learn some things from or take some things away?
No, for sure. I know I like to keep my circle very, very small. I love my teammates a lot. I would say the ones who I talk to on a day-to-day basis is probably, probably my best friend in the org. His name is JJ Sanchez. He got promoted to Vancouver last year, and he's my throwing partner. So he'll never lie to me. Like we tell each other how it is. So I mean, he has a lot of great things to say about his stuff. And then I talked to Jerome Watts Brown a lot about pitching and just to get into the mind and stuff like that. And our pitcher coaches are great over here too. I mean. Corey has been great. Corey Reed and ABD was our pitcher coach from last year in Vancouver. So I mean, everyone has their own philosophy about pitching and throwing. It's just about what kind of things you take from them and what kind of things you add to your game because you can't really listen to 10 to 15 guys and kind of get your own plan. It's like you kind of listen to one guy here, and then you kind of form your plan and make it your own routine. But everyone has just great things to say for sure.
Yeah, you talk about routines and stuff like that there as well. I just kind of want to know, like, get into your game day. Say you're pitching tomorrow. Like, are you a superstitious guy? Like, do you have a pregame meal that you have to eat every single time? Is there something that you have to do before you go onto the mound? Just what does a game day look like for you?
No, I'm not really superstitious. I just have to have a chip on my shoulder for that day. I can't be all Mr. Nice Guy and saying hi to everybody. I just, this is the way I roll. I mean, every time I don't pitch, I'm very, very nice to everyone. All my teammates love me and stuff like that. But the days I pitch, I'm just focused on that. I'm not trying to make friends. I'm not trying to be nice. I'm here for a job, So, I mean, I have a very extensive prep. Like let's say I start pitching at 12 o'clock. I'll start prepping around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and just with eating and tubs and stretching and just all that kind of stuff. So I'm very routine based. I feel that to be a great pitcher and a great athlete in this game, you have to have a solid routine. And I mean, things could tinker in the routine, but you kind of got to find what works for you and just stick with that and ride it.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so interesting to hear all of these little inside bits that we get, from active players. Me and Carter can talk as much as we want, but we don't know, how the day to day goes. Even the mindset, you talked about that, and feeling locked in, and wanting to take every outing like you're there to do a job. I really like that. I've said out of every player that I've ever loved watching, have always had that same mentality. And so, that's just something great to hear, especially, from a young guy like you coming up. And
Yeah.
that's the mentality that, people are sort of starting to go away from. But man, when somebody does have it and uses it, that's a big thing.
To harp back on the conversations, I mean, I encourage a lot of young pitchers to start talking to their hitters. What I'm saying? I feel you can gain a lot of valuable information by just talking to hitters about their approaches and stuff. I mean, I was over at my boy Deshaun Brown's house the other day, and I mean, my boy Vaughn was there, Deshaun Brown was there, and we were just talking, just just like the barbershop almost, and just talking about at bats and how I would face you and how you would face me, and like what you're looking for. So I feel it's always great to talk to pitchers, but you get a different scope and a different outlook on things when you talk to batters who are actually seeing your stuff and sitting on things. It's actually pretty remarkable on kind of things you'll come back from when talking to them about certain things.
Yeah, it's always nice to get those new and fresh perspectives. That's why we like getting some, like even on the podcast, like getting the fan perspectives, whether it's, a guy that's watching every single day like we are, or it's a guy, who turns on the TV every 5-6 days, whatever it is. You made a pretty big jump, obviously, from going from high school, obviously getting drafted to the Toronto Blue Jays, now being in the Dunedin complexes, playing with Vancouver as well. How was that transition for you? And what was like your, I made it moment that like made you like, oh, this is a little bit different from my high school experiences?
Yeah, man, it was definitely night and day. It was definitely night and day. I just think when you're at the top, like in the high school ranks and everything, you just feel like those 40 or 50 or so players is kind of it. You know what I'm saying? And then when you get to pro ball, you're like, wow, like everyone's a guy. Like everyone's a guy. And like I just feel the biggest thing where I grew up was just dealing with failure. I feel a lot of people deal with failure in their life or their career, how young or how old. And I was dealing with that from a young age of really when I got drafted. So once I kind of started to know how to deal with failure and what things to do and, like kind of things to tell myself, like different cues. And I mean, I'll even share this. It's like there's, no matter like how good of a game I have or how bad of a game I have, like I will either feel really good about myself or feel really bad about myself. But when 12 o'clock hits, it's a new day. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like when I was failing, I was bringing, a bad game into the next day and then maybe not doing my lift as efficient or maybe not, doing my throwing program as, with focus and stuff like that. So I feel, I mean, this is even for young guys growing up. It's like if you have a bad day, squash it, watch film, see what you can do better in your next outing, and then work for it, because it's like no matter how good or how bad you do, no one remembers your last outing. I mean, baseball is a game of like, what have you done for me lately? You know what I'm saying? So as long as you could just keep putting that foot ahead and just keep moving on, and you'll be just fine.
Irv, this is awesome. I couldn't thank you enough for coming on. It has been such a pleasure. We're going to have to get you back sometime during the season. You're going to have to give us a rundown on how everything's going. But
sure.
yeah, man, this has been excellent. You're the first player to come on with us for a podcast.
Really?
So, yeah. So
that's special. That's love, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, always have a special place with us, man. Yeah, we appreciate it. And obviously, I wish you the best. Yeah, young guy, obviously younger than us. We're pretty young as well. I'm only 23, he's 25. But yeah, you got a lot of time, obviously.
I'm 22. It's the young boys in the chat.
There we go, man. We got the young boys firing off here. So we love to see it. Again, thank you for coming on. And yeah, just wish you luck for the rest of your season.
God bless, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Big thanks to Irv Carter from joining us. Honestly, first player interview went really well. He was an awesome guy. Me and Carter did some background. Drafted 2021 by the Toronto Blue Jays, 5th round, pick 152. High school, went to Calvary Christian, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Just an awesome interview, Carter. And honestly, not a better guy to bring on. He was excellent. Did the interview great. Big shout out to him and his agent for setting that up. That was absolutely awesome.
Well, yeah, guy's 22 years old. He's younger than us. We're pretty young on the podcast, but yeah, interviewing a guy that's even slightly younger than you was pretty interesting. And a guy coming off of a pretty good year last year as well. In 2024 at a 3.8 ERA, 7-1. Obviously, winning isn't necessarily a pitcher stat, but you love to see that they are having success in the games that they are starting. 73.1 innings pitched with 78 strikeouts, a 1.21 WHIP. Was very good in with Dunedin in single A, and then high A obviously struggled a little bit. But once you have that bigger jump, it's going to take a little bit to get accustomed to that league. This is a guy, again, being drafted in the 5th round, only in 2021. This is a guy that we might be able to see come 2027. I think that would be around the time you could see Irv Carter become a Toronto Blue Jay. So if he continues to progress, which continues to get better, which he has been, this is a guy that we can see in the Toronto Blue Jays blue sooner than people think.
Yeah, and we'll hopefully do more of these. Hopefully we can get Irv to come back on throughout the season, here and there to break down how his season's going and how he's looking. It's cool to bring the guys on before the season kicks off, and then towards the end of really how it went, and he can give us a good breakdown. But Carter, getting into some spring training stuff here for the Toronto Blue Jays. Let's start with Max Scherzer. That guy has been cooking this spring training.
Yeah, he's been absolutely ridiculous. This is the Max Scherzer that I don't even know if we were expecting. Again, this is against not everyday MLB players, but you see a 40-year-old pitching this efficiently and this effectively in spring training. It is something that it is fair to get excited about. Don't let anyone tell you differently. But Max Scherzer today against Detroit pitched 3 innings, had 6 Ks, all of them swinging. You absolutely love to see that. Had 13 whiffs on 32 swings for 41%, and then just the changeup induced 4 whiffs on the 7 pitches that he threw. That's unbelievable from Max Scherzer. Again, it's early on spring training, but you have a guy that coming off of an injury, a lot of people are doubting that he can, pitch those innings. It's going to be different once we get into the regular season, how much he is appearing, how many games he starts, how many innings he does throw. But early on in spring training, it's nice to see that Max Scherzer is looking like he is in prime condition. Maybe a little bit of validity to that. Buck Martinez, Max Scherzer is in World Series form. I'm not going to go that far, but it is nice to see Max Scherzer having success early.
Yeah, it really is. A lot of stuff coming down the pipeline, guys. We have, like we said, the Dallin Wilton and Skylar Peters episode with hot takes, predictions, betting favorites, all of that coming probably the Monday and Tuesday right before opening day. And then we got to do top 10 Blue Jays. We started out with number 10 just the other day. We went through the New York Yankees lineup. We're going to compare the Blue Jays to the rest of the AL East and see how they slot in as well. Possible huge injury from Garrett Cole, which we will go over more in depth in tomorrow's episode as well. Some comments from Jeff Hoffman. A lot coming down the pipeline here in the next few days, so make sure you guys stay tuned to Locked On Blue Jays. Carter, anything else before we kick out of here for today?
No, just some other injuries that we're going to have to go over as well. Erik Swanson having an injury, Ryan Burr having an injury. We're going to go way more into depth on that in tomorrow's episode. We kind of want to just make today's main focus the Irv Carter interview. Yeah, we were had a great time. Obviously, first player interview for the podcast, so that is one we're going to remember probably for the rest of our lives, assuming that we do this podcast for a very long time. And we hope that we can start this domino effect, get more players on. We'll see what the interest is like throughout the season. Obviously, once the season starts, a lot harder to get players on because they're busy enough in spring training, doing their routines, activities. Can't even imagine what the workload is like when they're playing baseball games every single day. So obviously, we'll have to see how things transpire. But yeah, it was a good first interview to have with a good young player that we can look forward to with this Toronto Blue Jays organization. We just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. The likes, comments, subscriptions, everything recently has been much appreciated. But we have noticed that about 75% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you guys are coming back, tuning into all the episodes, the podcast, the shorts, whatever it is, we would appreciate a subscription. It also helps keep keep our podcast at the top of your For You page. But other than that, Braden, you got anything else to end this Monday episode?
No, just, go follow Irv Carter anywhere you can follow him as well. Follow his career a little bit, right? That's why one of the things why we like having him on is these guys, that you talk to early in their careers eventually could be Toronto Blue Jays. And then, you got a little bit of that, you feel a little bit of that connection to these players as they move up to the major leagues. So again, really appreciate him popping on. And hopefully you guys will join us the rest of the week for more podcasts to come. And a lot more interesting things as we head into 2025 with this Toronto Blue Jays roster.